The internet is one of the greatest learning tools ever invented. The availability of knowledge is limitless. At its most basic, the internet is a collection of computers sharing information electronically. Internet users use web pages to navigate the World Wide Web and to share information. Internet users see web pages as graphics, text, and online applications, but behind all of that is computer code. Hypertext Markup Language, HTML, is the computer language that creates web pages. HTML is written in the form of HTML elements, consisting of tags enclosed in angle brackets. HTML tags most commonly come in pairs like H1 and end H1. The first tag in the pair is the opening tag, and the second tag is the closing tag. They are also referred to as start and end tags. A web browser can read HTML files and compose them into visible or audible web pages. The browser does not display the HTML tags, but uses them to interpret the content of the page. HTML describes the structure of a website semantically, along with cues for presentation, making it a markup language rather than a programming language. HTML elements form the building blocks of all websites. HTML allows images and objects to be embedded and can be used to create interactive forms. It provides a means to create structured documents by denoting structural semantics for text such as headings, paragraphs, lists, links, quotes, and other items. It can embed scripts written in languages such as JavaScript, which would affect the behavior of HTML web pages. JavaScript is code that is most commonly used as part of web browsers. JavaScript allows client-side scripts to interact with the user, control the browser, communicate asynchronously, and alter the document content that is displayed. JavaScript is a great tool for error checking a web form to see if all fields have been completed before a user submits the form. JavaScript is the framework for a lot of Web 2.0 technology. While there are many desktop applications for creating web pages, sometimes simplest is best. The built-in Windows program, Notepad, is available on any version of Windows. It can be found by going to Start, Accessories, Notepad. Notepad is a basic text editor. If you are not using Windows, any basic text editor will do. At the end of the day, HTML is just simple text, a language that speaks to browsers. When saving your web page, it is important to save the file with the extension .html, as this designates what type of file it is to the computer. Here is an example of a basic web page. All web pages must begin with a start HTML tag and end with a closing HTML tag. By putting a slash before the word HTML, this tells the web browser that it is a closing tag. All closing tags begin with a slash. Every web page should also have a start body tag and close body tag. Any code type between the start and closing body tags is shown on the web page. You can type code in one long sentence or space it out as much as you would like, as long as the code is in the proper order and uses the proper syntax. Now that you know the basics of a web page, we can add new elements in. If you want the web page to have a title, you can place a head tag after the HTML tag. This tells the web browser that this section of code is the header of the page and will contain the title and any JavaScript. Inside the head tag, you place your title. Inside the body tag, you can designate text to be a headline so that it stands out from regular text. Any text that is placed between H1 and end H1 will be considered headline text. You are able to bold text on your web page by using the B and NB tags. Text placed between these tags will be bolded. To put a line break between your elements, we use the BR tag or the break tag. This is like hitting the Enter key on your keyboard to create a new paragraph. Please note that the break element does not have an end tag. It is an empty tag. Our web page now has a goal for the user: to identify the verb in the sentence. We have to supply the user with options to choose from. For this, we will use the HTML element input. The input element is another HTML element that does not require an end tag. Input elements can show up as radio buttons, checkboxes, buttons, or text fields. To specify what type of input element we want to use on our web page, we specify the attribute type in the input element. Type is an attribute. For example, the HTML code input type equals radio will display a radio button on the web page. It is important to give input tags attributes: type, name, ID, and value. By assigning these 4 attributes, the web browser is able to determine how to handle these input elements. Please note that inside of the input element, we use either quotation marks or single quotes around the values of attributes inside the element. For example, we designate the input as a radio box by typing type equals parentheses radio parentheses inside of the input element. Anytime a value is assigned inside of an element, single or double quotes must be used. You may notice that every input has the same name of question 1. This tells the web browser that the radio inputs are all connected and to only allow one answer for the set of radio inputs. The ID is unique to each input. This is unique so that we can retrieve the value of IDs inside the input element. The value attribute is the value assigned to the input. In this example, input 1 is a radio button with the name of question 1, a unique ID of verb 1, and a value of the. Input 2 is a radio button still with the name of question 1, a unique ID of verb 2, and a value of dog. Now that we have a complete question and set of answers, we need to have a way to check the answer. We use the input element to create a submit button. We give the input element a type of submit, a value of submit, and a name of submit. We now have a complete web page that asks a question, lists possible answers, and has a submit button to check if the answer is correct. However, at this point, clicking on the button does nothing. To answer the question posed on the web page, please identify the verb in the following sentence. We are going to use JavaScript. To use JavaScript, you must place a script element inside of the head element. You must set the type attribute of the script element to text/JavaScript. The code that is typed between the script tags will be JavaScript, not HTML. This is where we switch languages. In JavaScript, we are going to use if statements to see if the selected answer is the correct answer. When typing JavaScript, the syntax rules are completely different than HTML. JavaScript code is surrounded by opening curly brackets and closing curly brackets. One of the main differences between HTML and JavaScript is that the JavaScript is case sensitive. JavaScript is a lot pickier than HTML and can be harder to debug, but it is a very powerful tool that works in tandem with HTML. Inside the script element, the first task is to create a JavaScript function. In this example, it is called checkForm. An open curly bracket begins the function. We begin the JavaScript if statement and use the method document.getElementById. We use the document.getElementById method to check each input element to see if the element was selected by a user and what we want to display back to the user. In this example, we check input with the ID verb1 to see if it is checked. Checked meaning the user has selected this radio button. We use the alert method to send a message back to the user. To activate our JavaScript, we have to assign it to be called. In this case, we want to check if the answer is correct when the submit button is clicked. Therefore, we add the function checkForm to the submit input element. We add the attribute onClick to the submit input element. This tells the submit button to call the JavaScript function checkForm to determine if the correct answer was selected. A message box prompts the user with information about their selection. Web programming can be tedious but rewarding work. It is often necessary to check if your code is valid throughout your programming. Your web browser provides a built-in debugger to check if your HTML and JavaScript code is valid. By pushing F12 inside your web browser, you will open the console debugger menu. This debugger will show you all your code and highlight errors. If you are unable to figure out why your code is invalid, the best solution is to Google the HTML element you are having difficulty with and read what the proper attributes and syntax are for the element. The ideas put forth in this lesson can be brought over into many areas of education. Teachers who understand the basics of web programming are in a better position to create new creative educational ways of teaching. The possibilities are endless.